speak to Jamie Jackson, the Guardian's Manchester correspondent. All right, Jamie.
JJ.
Good evening, good evening.
Hello,
How are you, Jane?
Never been better. How are you two gents?
Yeah, we're good, matey. Look, let's talk a bit of Man United. The decision to get rid of Ruud van Nistelrooy, how's that gone down?
Probably mixed. I personally think it's the right decision. I have to say, I found it quite semi-amusing that basically every time, he was before the media or had a chance to say it. And some of this was us asking him the question, but he was basically saying, I want to stay. And the more he said that and continued to say it over a number of press conferences, the more I started to think, well, he obviously hasn't heard. And I don't know, it didn't seem like it would happen. I can see a case where they would have kept him because, he knows the players and all that sort of thing. He can sort of word up Ruben Amorim quickly about that. But on the other hand, he's his own man. And, he's going to live or die by his decisions, his staff, and it's obviously the way he wants to go. I mean, Van Nistelrooy did a good job, but at the same time, maybe Ten Hag would have got those sort of results. So you never know. I don't think it's a bad decision.
Yeah, look, for me, on this one, Ruud van Nistelrooy, he's a legend at the football club, so it's a difficult one because, fans want to keep him around, and Amorim would have looked at it and thought, what's the best scenario? But for me, when I've watched Ruud van Nistelrooy come in and take over as interim manager, he looked like a manager. He had the qualities of a manager. He had the aura, I think, of maybe, being a manager. He's done well, actually, with Man United. So I think Amorim's got to look at it and go, do I need someone in here who's potentially already there to take my job if it all goes wrong? You want to bring in your own people, bring in the people that you can trust. And I'm sure he's a trustworthy guy, but you don't know him, does he? So I think Amorim had to make this call for him to have a clean slate with Man United.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a classic thing. If Amorim does well, it's a good decision. If he doesn't, a bit like David Moyes, who was criticised for sort of changing too much and all the rest of it, because obviously it went south under him, then it'd be the bad decision. I think Phelan, for example, was one person he got rid of Moyes at the time. So it's the old thing in football. If you win, you can do what you like, right? Yeah, you rule. If not, everything's wrong. You're the issue. Selection's wrong. You can't tie up your football laces, all the rest of it. You're clueless, basically. You made a mug by the results, if you don't win. So I think, that's kind of what will happen here. I've seen so many, reporting on I basically go back as far as Mancini being at City, for covering both clubs. And so I've seen so many. I think this will be the sixth number one since Ferguson left. I think they've had 5 interims or caretakers in that time as well. So that's 11 different blokes running the team at one stage. And, they've done all right by other club standards. They've won 3 or 4 cups, but by United's not good enough. They've never once competed properly for the title. You've never actually got into April, May. But yeah, they've got a chance here. Yeah, there's a couple of times when, there was one year under Van Gaal when he went to Chelsea. United went to Chelsea. If they'd beaten them, they might have been within touch, but it didn't happen. They lost. And that, Mourinho finished his second, but he was 19 points behind the City 100-point team. They've never been contenders. And that is a bit of a disaster, really, for 12 years.
No, look, it's the right choice. What job is he going to do? And knowing the way that Sir Jim Ratcliffe wants to run the club, he wants to try and save money. So it's another salary he doesn't need. So why would you have someone hanging around? Totally the right decision. I don't know whether you heard a previous caller, Jay, on the show saying that he felt that Højlund wasn't pulling his weight and he felt that it might be time for him to move on. And I'm saying, no, Amorim's job now is to get the best out of him. He's got to get the best out of Rashford, best out of Garnacho, Bruno, to get the best out of Højlund. We've seen what he's done with Gyökeres. And there are similarities. I use that word loosely, but I like what I see in Højlund. I think there is something in there that needs to be persevered.
100%. Listen, I obviously see them every home game and everything away in Europe. And they just don't create enough chances for Højlund. It's not like he's missing 4, 5, 6 chances every game, every couple of games. He's absolutely starved. There was a finish in a recent game where he chipped the keeper. I can't remember who it was against. I see so many, but Højlund runs through and he makes the goal with the chip. He has to do that, and that was a different kind of finish I've not seen from him so far. So that said to me, oh yeah, he's got a little bit of a sort of not an X factor. I mean, it's a bit too strong, but. Jason, you're completely right. His job is to get him scoring goals. I mean, going back to Van Nistelrooy, for a guy who sort of scored a hatful of goals for United and came in as a forwards coach, well, they only scored 9 goals or something in the league under his sort of tutelage. That didn't particularly work, but that's more to do with overall the team. And they are not. They beat Leicester 3-0, and that in the league, the last game, and that's actually they've actually scored 3 goals. Because they don't often do that like they used to, because they just do not create enough chances. And it's interesting if we go on to his formation, this 3-4-3. You two were obviously proper players. You tell me how often a 3-4-3 is attacking. Now, from what I hear in Portugal, and I went over there, did the Sporting Lisbon game, when they played City and they beat City, they routed them. From what I hear, he doesn't really play attacking 3-4-3s. How it was quoted to me was against the better sides, he plays a bit like he did against City. Yes,
it was a 5 actually against City, wasn't it? That was really deep.
So I'm just wondering how that's going to go down. With the crowd. But also, if you look at the players or the squad he's inheriting, it's interesting. For example, who are natural wing backs in that side? Yeah. Is he going to bring back? Well, possibly, yes. But on the other side, is it going to be Dallo? And then you look at sort of, Garnacho. Where does Fernandes fit into a 3-4-3? Is he going to go a diamond? Is he going to go a diamond?
Do you know what? It's a really interesting. Bruno's the one. Where do you play Bruno? You can make a place for Rashford. You can make a place for Højlund. Make a place for Garnacho. You can actually pick 3 centre halves quite easily. The 2 midfielders. Who is it going to be? Who are those 2 if he's going to play that? Unless he does play unless he plays that unless he plays a 10.
If he plays a diamond, and you say one of the sort of the tip of it's going to be Fernandes and the base is going to be a holding player, where does Maino go? You know what I mean? So one of those 2.
That's why he's paid the bucks. That's why he's paid the big bucks.
Exactly, and this is why it's going to fascinate. I mean, I think so far he hasn't got his work visa, which on the one hand is not a big deal because there's lots of players away and the players who are sort of around the club are kind of recovering from injury. But he's essentially going to have Thursday, Friday, and I think it's a Sunday game, isn't it? The Ipswich game. He's going to have sort of 2 days, or maybe 3 days, you want to call it that, to work with them. He's obviously thought about all this, I'm guessing. But it's interesting. The word is Liverpool didn't want him in the summer because of the 3-4-3.
That's right, I heard that.
That's what I hear from City as well, in terms of if Pep leaves. And, you can say it's just a system and all that, but I think it is very important to how a team plays. And, if you ask me a slightly different question, I could make a case for asking why have they gone for this guy? In the one hand, he's done very well at Sporting. I get all that, but it smacks a little bit of another Ten Hag appointment to me, where he's done very well in a league that is not the Premier League. Yeah. It might work, it might not. But I thought this lot, the Ineos organisation, wouldn't go for sort of proven, not nailed on managers, because it's fair. I get it. There's no guarantees, but I don't know.
I hear you.
Someone who's proven.
The shape of the team is going to be fascinating. Getting 3 centre halves in there is not a problem. They're overloading there. It will suit Maguire, won't it? Mazraoui I thought was excellent against Chelsea. Yeah, Dallo's the obvious choice, but then you've got the midfield. How do you fit?
Well, it's Bruno Fernandes. That's the one. Yeah, but because if Bruno Fernandes weren't at Manchester United, they wouldn't have that problem. They'd play Manu. They'd play
Ugarte.
Ugarte
in there as well.
So I think Fernandes can play in midfield.
Casemiro.
I think Fernandes can play in midfield. I think play
alongside who?
Well, you got to have legs around him.
Right.
You got to have someone who's going to have discipline to sit.
Yeah, but then nothing quite adds up. There's nothing you go. That's the answer, but you can make a case for several different.
It's going to take time. Yeah, of course. And I think I like this guy. What I've seen of him, he looks really good. I like him, but we'll see what happens. Man United's a tough place to come and be a manager of. What about Manchester City? Lost 4 games now in a row under Pep Guardiola. Unheard of. Have the wheels fell off?
Well, I don't know if they've fallen off yet, but what I would say is there's several factors here. Rodri, it's not all about him, but I get it. He's not playing and he kind of runs that team, if you like. The thing is this whole thing about whether Guardiola is going to stay or not. Now, it might be resolved in this international break because traditionally, certainly the last 2 contract extensions he signed, it has been this international break, or certainly during the World Cup was the last one, November 2022. He's often goes to Abu Dhabi with Al Mubarak, the chairman, invites him over, then they sign a new contract. But what I'm getting to saying is maybe the uncertainty with regard to the players wondering what's going on is starting to bite a little bit. I'd also say that defensively, they're making some interestingly bad decisions. The penalties, I think both penalties, or certainly one of the penalties against Sporting was a Gvardiol, very, you can do that in a one-off game. I get that. It's a just an isolated mistake. But There's other bad defensive decisions. You know, I think their confidence has been knocked a little bit because they're not used to this. And you know what it's like. It's like winning is a positive thing, a positive momentum. And then you start to lose a couple. You start thinking, oh, wait a minute. And, you know, it's interesting that Guardiola, at the start of it, was saying, well, it's all in different competitions, as if to say we're not losing ground in each of those competitions. But I was thinking, I get why you're saying that, but it's still 2 at the time and 3 losses on the bounce. And that starts to add up. So it is an interesting sort of juncture. It's interesting that Arsenal are going sort of backwards as well this season.
Yeah. Well, because I think both of them have lost their 2 best players. Odegaard is a massive part of what they do and how they attack. And losing Rodri, as we've known from the past, you can't get away from it. He is everything in that team. That's why he's Ballon d'Or winner. And since they've lost him, they just seem so much more open to conceding goals. And
they've always been a side that'll give you chances, but right now they feel more open than they've ever been under.
Do you think they'll sign Zubimendi? I know there's talk of that potentially happening in January. They're gonna have to get someone in out, aren't they?
Yeah, you identify basically the issue here, Jay, because he's never been able to buy, because they don't grow on trees, obviously, a proper competitor or replacement for Rodri. That's what the Calvin Phillips thing was about, from League. Get him in. And if you think about it, that was an interesting mistake because that's his position, Guardiola's, right? Number 6 was what he played, and also it is the position his team. We're talking about Rodri, and he got that kind of wrong with Phillips. So to go back to Zubimendi, I think they will do, for someone like him, because they don't have a natural replacement. I mean, Kovacic is a good player and all the rest of it. Gundogan, you can go through them. Bernardo Silva, but it's just not the same. No, you need someone. He's basically Pep Guardiola on the pitch, if we can put it that way. Rodri, he's the sort of the lieutenant, the guy who is his eyes. He just, he really understands the whole thing. And some of these goals we're talking about, when you say they're too open, Jay, is because he's not there, sort of, anticipating the danger, or at the same time they're not losing the ball as much because he's playing those 3 or 4 yard passes, moving the ball upwards toward, and keeping hold of it. And just basically, Guardiola's thing is the old attack is best form of defense. The old cliche. That's it's basically possession. Keep hold of it. They can't score, sort of thing. Yeah. So I would be staggered. They don't like to go for players in January, but I'd be staggered if they don't, because he's obviously out until next season, Rodri.
Yeah. Do you think Pep Guardiola will be the manager next season?
That's a really good question. What I will say is the last time he signed a new deal, which was, as I say, the World Cup 2022, they really didn't think that this is his friends, his advisors, that he was going to do that. So all I can say is he then did again. It's difficult to tell. I don't think they know. When I sort of did a little story on this, I think it was in the summer. I was told it'd be around about this time, maybe Christmas. This period of the winter. Anyway, we're going into when he will make the decision. I think it's difficult to tell. If I want to get off the fence, I think he will sign on again. I just get the feeling he sort of almost is relishing the fact that, as to use your phrase, the wheels are coming off a little bit, and let's see what I've got. It's like almost like kind of sort of renew his sort of hunger. Yeah.
The Sports Bar with Jamie O'Hara and Jason Cundy, Monday to Thursday nights from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.